So I've had my critique of Hasan. I have my fair share of issues with his advocacy. I don't think he's a good advocate for socialism. If he would have if he had stayed if he had been a variety streamer, played games, just reacted to content in general and stuff like that, and had called himself a socialist and said, no, we should just do more. We should share more. We should blah, blah, blah. All that stuff. If he had just stayed that way and didn't call people like Dylan Burns a war whore. Dylan Burns, who has been shelled by Russia. If he hadn't called people debate streamers debate perverts for debating, like, he can have critique of debate, but calling them perverts, like, it reminds me of groomer. Okay, it teeters on the groomer allegations from the right wing for me, and especially since he is a debate pervert himself, like the Willie Mack debate that he had. Dude, he had Willie Mack on to talk about, who is a drama YouTuber. He had him on, but he refused to even acknowledge, not he acknowledged, but he refused to talk about or talk to Dylan Burns. And Angus, if you are a Hasan Abi fan, have you seen the Dylan Burns video? Or have you just heard what Hasan said about him? Or it? Have you just seen the trailer for it, perhaps? Or have you actually seen the video? If you haven't, if you are a Hasan fan and you haven't seen the Dylan Burns video, it is a good video. The critique of the video that Hasan had is it's taken out of context. Dylan Burns, and he forces people to sit in front, not forces, but he makes people sit in front of content during an active war and react to a streamer in America, blah, blah, blah. Like, nonsense ad hominem attack on Dylan Burns when Hasan is the biggest political live streamer currently. That has impact. He talks to AOC. He has the ear of policymakers. He has the ear of policymakers' assistants. He's not a nobody. He might call himself, I'm just a streamer, it doesn't matter. No, it matters. That's like saying, it's just Fox News. What does it matter? It's just an anchor. It's just Tucker Carlson. Who cares? No, it matters. It absolutely matters. I wouldn't call myself a Hasan fan, more just a viewer. Some of his comments are out of pocket. Okay, good. That's fine. Like, I even if you were a Hasan fan, I wouldn't mind. Like, people can be fancy and be critical of what people are saying, but still. It matters what people say online. Acting like online isn't real life is stupid. It's old. It's kind of elitist, actually. It's very elitist. So when salient critique happens of Hasan, he brushes it off. But when a drama streamer puts out a video on him, they get some traction. But it's drama, he has him on instead. Very, very slimy behavior. Anyway, so I have my critique of him. In Taiwan going like, whatever the State Department thinks. Fuck the State Department. What do you think? No, he's spineless, and he didn't always used to be. And that is my biggest critique of him. He has grown more spineless over time. he has an audience capture. He is held hostage by the audience he has cultivated. Because he has rid the audience of anyone critical of him, anyone who is a debate pervert, anyone who, like he did with the strike on the hospital in Gaza, he yelled at chat for not agreeing with him that it was definitely Israel that bombed the hospital, despite every expert, despite every report saying it looks like it might have been a Hamas rocket that misfired and struck the hospital instead, rather than a targeted attack by Israel. Like, there's plenty to criticize Israel. Can you not bite me? There's plenty of to criticize Israel for. You don't have to invent new things. The problem is that he doesn't like to be nuanced. Oh, you want... What is it that you want, Cat? He doesn't like to be nuanced. He doesn't like to be... I don't agree with people saying, oh, you should wait until all facts come out, because that's an impossible standard to uphold. You never know when all facts are out. Israel doesn't... has secret documents that they won't release for years and years and years. Same goes with any nation, you know? Any current conflict, there's always going to be an update on what is going on, you know? So it's an impossible stand. However, not being completely confident and screaming at your audience for disagreeing with you and saying, it might not be, it actually might be, I think it's a Hamas rocket, since every expert says that. If you scream at that, like, what kind of audience will you have left? The sycophants, the brown-nosers, the people who, under no circumstance, will ever be critical of you. And that seems to have been the tankies. That seems to be the tankies, the hardliners. However, this doesn't mean that everything Hasan does is bad, you know? And there's bad critique of... Why are you biting me? Now you have to go. Go. Can't keep biting me like that. Like, he wants something. He wants you to do something specific, but then you don't do it and he bites you for it. Stupid. Anyway, I stumbled because I wouldn't say gorged myself, but I gorged myself in some Hasan videos at one point, and I got this video recommended to me. And there was just something about it that I knew that I had to watch it on stream. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to just check the first minute. And if I remember correctly, I wasn't disappointed. Let's see if I will be disappointed.
We knew that already. We have a white supremacist.
Oh, sorry, it's a bit loud.
Criminal justice system. I don't know why people get so triggered by this sentiment, okay?
Greetings, internets. In this video, I will be making the argument that the socialist Twitch streamer Hasan Piker, also known as Hasan Abi, Cenk Uygur's nephew, genuinely has absolutely no idea what he is talking about, and is completely clueless in regards to economics and world affairs. Now, I know that may come across as extremely
completely clueless? Maybe. Like, world affairs? Abso-fucking-lutely. Economics? I have no idea. No idea. I'm clueless on economics.
harsh and bad faith. But I assure you this is a completely serious and honest assessment, and I intend to objectively show why this conclusion is fair and reasonable. The thing is, much of Hasan's content follows very predictable patterns, and tactics he uses to avoid honestly addressing whatever subject it is that he is babbling on about. And when you learn to spot said patterns in the kind of content he makes, it becomes fairly easy for the average person to see through this nonsense. And as it turns out...
Is this a Destiny fan? Is this a Destiny simp?
Hasan is not the only person guilty of this type of snarky, irrational reaction content. Therefore, this video will not just be about Hasan, but also about this particular style of pseudo-intellectualism in general. I hope with this video, more people will become aware of this style and come to see why it's a total grift, so that it can be more easily called out for the juvenile kind of content that it is, and why it should never be taken seriously by anyone. Let's start.
When you call someone a grifter, like he just did here with Hasan, Myth guy? Oh, Destiny. Wasn't that an... Like, I'm on meth. Dude. I take meth. What the fuck? Are you shaming me for my meth addiction? Is that what you're doing? No. Calling anyone a grifter... Like, I'd call Hinkle a grifter. But I try not to call everyone who I disagree with or who has stupid opinions grifters for one very particular reason. I have no idea what's going on in their head. Grifting means that you're saying one thing, but you think another. Your actual honest opinions are completely different from the things you're saying. I don't think, for the most part at least, that's true with Hasan. When it comes to socialist nations, I do think that, but I still wouldn't call him a grifter because I don't think he advocates for it. I don't know. It's a delicate balance to walk there, but I don't think he's a grifter.
Start by looking at Hasan's style of responding to other people's videos, which relies heavily on fallacies of relevance. When Hasan makes an attempt to debunk someone else...
Fallacy of relevance? I've never heard. God, I hate when they do this. Bad website designs. Assessing the legitimate form of fallacies. Are all these fallacies of relevance? Is that just like a collection of irrelevant conclusion, appeal to ignorance, ad hominems, appeal to authority? Oh, I have a pet peeve here. We'll see if he falls into it or not. Appeal to authority, appeal to emotion, appeal to pity, appeal to force, appeal... Okay. So it's just a collection of fallacies. It's kind of a hypocrite, but it's monetized hypocrisy. Not hypocrisy. No. Monetized dishonesty. That's kind of the thing. It's monetized dishonesty.
Else's video content, he will generally follow...
maybe not just monetized, because you can grift for clout. But that dishonest... Just being a dishonest actor. That's kind of what a grifter is. You're a dishonest actor where we can't trust that what you're saying is what you actually stand for, you know? That's kind of...
a simple 3-step formula. First, he will pause the video he was responding to before it has made its central point clear. Second, he will then refute the incomplete statement, generally by spewing some completely unrelated bullshit and rarely ever addressing the central core of their argument. Optionally, he may also throw in some socialist or other partisan talking points in order to make himself look smart to the people who already agree with him. He will then repeat this process until he can pretend like he has won. The way this grift works is that by only ever responding to half a statement, he can avoid making it too obvious.
This isn't grifting for me. That's what I mean. I knew this. I agree with what he's saying here. This is something I've noticed myself in Hasan. It's a trap that live streamers, React live streamers, I should say, fall into, where something is said or shown on the screen, and we go, oh. And blah, 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 you know? And we draw conclusions. And because you pause and you talk, the the overarching point might even get lost on the audience, might even get lost on the streamer, or it's ignored by the streamer if they're dishonest. But I think Hasan does this a lot more than others. I think, or at least those I've seen. But yeah, he's especially egregious on this point. But that's not grifting. Again, it's not grifting.
Obvious that he doesn't act.
Grifting. Let's just make sure that I'm not. Engage in petty or small-scale swindling. Yeah. You're swindling the audience. That's kind of the thing. This isn't the best definition for modern day, but you're swindling your audience about your opinions and what they should think.
Actually understand anything that is being said by the person he is responding to. It's a method that lets him substitute objective reason for snarky gotchas. Of course, the problem with this type of content from a rational standpoint is that the counter-arguments Hasan produces this way are almost always completely irrelevant to the subject. Let's now look at a few of examples of this in action, starting with Praxben.
He's deranged ANCAP.
If America loves democracy so much, why don't we have democracy in the workplace? Like, we love freedom, but when we go into work, we just start taking orders from someone, no questions asked? How about the workers choose their managers rather than the other way around? How about when management is coming up with policies that directly affect the worker, why don't the workers have a say in creating those policies?
Okay, so the first guy is classic. This is like, first guy is a Richard Wolf Andy, okay? I already know. Of course, I don't personally disagree with that take. I agree with it, but it's a classic Richard Wolf Andy. Let's see.
That's interesting that he would say he agrees with this. Actually. Considering one of the issues on, not the issues, but one of the discussions that was had on the Leftovers podcast, like a month or two ago or something like that, about socialism specifically, he didn't talk about this. He actually said kind of like it should be government centralized. I don't know. I don't think a central control of business, government control of business, leads to anything near this.
See what he has to say, though. This guy looks like he's about to intellectually dismantle him, okay?
This is incredibly stupid. First of all, logically, just because something affects you doesn't mean you should have a say in it. If 50 people...
Wait, what? Just because logically? Bro, you can't just say
Whoa. Again, he made a point that is trying to... like, that's point A. Just because something affects you doesn't mean you have, what do you say, you're a right to...
Okay.
If 50 people...
Wait, what?
First of all, logically, just because something affects you doesn't mean you should have a say in it.
Doesn't mean you should have a say in it. Like, of course it means that. To me, politically, ideologically, of course. But again, this isn't like pausing and taking something out of context. The context is clear. And his point is clear. I don't know. Let's see if he can refute
because
this.
Logically? Bro, you can't just say logically and then say whatever the you want after it. And then people will be like, well, that guy's logical. See?
Like, okay, this is an ideological difference between this guy, and the other guy. It's just an ideological difference. It has nothing to do with logic.
Logically, unicorns should exist, just like the free market. It does. Oh my God, he has his IQ. Oh no.
That's embarrassing, actually. That is really embarrassing.
I'm Ben, IQ 137. Oh no.
He beat me, the bastard.
So right at the start of the video, we have our classic step one and two.
Hold on. Are you just going to take that and not see his overarching point? It's just going to take that out of context? Are you, Mantis Wave? How do I know that this is contextually correct? I have no idea.
He pauses the video just as Praxben is about to make a logical argument, and then Hasan claims that it's not a logical argument. Well, of course what Praxben just said is not a logical argument because he hasn't made the argument yet. because Hasan paused in the middle of it. No.
He failed again. I'm sorry. Now I'm pausing. He failed on the first leg of the argument. When you make an argument, when you're responding to someone else making an argument, and you go, okay, that doesn't make sense for X, Y, and Z. If you say X and X is completely wrong, the rest doesn't care. It doesn't matter at all. If your argument is built on an error, how can the conclusion be correct? Thanks, Angus. Have a good day.
Oh shit, Sherlock. He then spews some irrelevant nonsense and personal insults before unpausing. What does Praxben's IQ of 137 have anything
I
to
knew
do-
it. I fucking knew it. Okay, let's fucking go. He made an error here. This was not an ad hominem at all. Attacking your opponent's character or personal traits in an attempt to undermine their argument. That's in my opinion, not the best definition. Ad hominem definition. Here. Directed of an argument or reaction directed against a person rather than the position they are maintaining. Hasan didn't do that. He insulted him. There's a difference in saying, you display your IQ, what a fucking loser, and going, you display your IQ, therefore this is wrong. An ad hominem is an argument that is fallacious. Insults are perfectly fine, you moron. Are we not allowed to insult our ideological opponents now? Psh, come on, please.
Do with this video or the point it makes? Nothing. Absolutely no relevance
it has
whatsoever.
nothing to do with it.
Already we are seeing
it's
why
funny.
Hasan's style of content is not to be taken seriously. Not only is there zero attempt by Hasan at good faith here, he hasn't even attempted to understand what Praxben has to say before babbling on about it.
I haven't seen that you are attempting to understand what Hasan is saying. Two can play that game.
You will not be the factory owner. You will not be enslaving others. You will be my slave. And then I will be Elon Musk's slave. Okay? Please stop thinking that in an ANCAP, deregulated society, that you will thrive in that society. You will not. Okay? If you're not thriving in this situation, you're not thriving in that one.
People walk into my home.
So, if you had stuck to that part, I could agree with him. That's actually a good idea. Like, he assumes the positions of Praxben here. But considering that Praxben has his IQ in the description here, it's not a far-fetched assumption, is it?
Now, just because they're going to be affected by the conditions of my house, that does not mean that they get a say in what I do. It is...
Wait, what?
Yeah.
No, they absolutely do get a fucking... That's literally not true. That's why there's like zoning restrictions and like, for example, if you have your friends that come over to your house and they have children and they fall into your fucking pool and die, like, you're absolutely liable for that, for not putting up a fucking pool gate, okay? So...
No. Actually, I want to hear what he had to say here. What it was the...
situation, you're not thriving in...
that they get a say. People walk into my home now just because they're going to be affected by the conditions of my house. That does not mean that they get a say in what I do.
Actually, it does. Logically, it does. Even, I don't like Hasan's examples, but just take something low scale here. If you walk into his house and there's a booby trap there, something low scale, you know. No, if you walk into his house and he's beating his wife, do you not have a say in what he's doing? Because it's his house? Really? Or how he's treating his kids or whatever. Like, he can say, no, like, if his point is probably like, if my house is dirty, you have no say in that, in how I clean it. You have no say in how I maintain my house. But he's saying that just because something affects you doesn't mean you have a say in it. Just because my house is a danger to you doesn't mean you have a say in it. Of course it does.
It is
Wait, what? There's like over to your house liable, and they have for not putting up a fucking pool gate. Okay, so.
Again, pausing and spewing nonsense. This time Hasan completely fails to understand the point of what Praxman is saying. Praxman was making something known as a reductio ad absurdum, which is a valid form of a logical argument where you show why something makes no sense by showing how belief in it results in an absurd conclusion. The statement was made that you should have a say in whatever happens to affect you. So Praxman responds by pushing that statement to its absurd conclusion that people should have a say in how someone else's house is run just because they walk into that house.
Okay. The point that the original guy was doing was about workplace. Workplace. Not your private home, not your personal comfort, not your bed or how it's made. He's saying, why do we have to be slaves to corporations? Why don't we have more democracy? But what this guy's doing then, what is it, Praxben? He doesn't do a reduction ad absurdum. I don't know what the fallacy is called. What he's doing, is it a red herring? No, it's not a red herring, is it? Divert attention from the real issue by focusing instead of... Okay, yeah. He's doing a red herring, actually. By focusing instead on an issue having only a surface relevance to the first. He's doing a red herring here. This has nothing to do with logic at all. It has to do with ideology. Secondly, someone's home and someone's workplace are not the same thing. Oh, but people own the workplace. Yeah, fuck that. I don't care. This has nothing to do with ownership. This has to do with ideology. This has to do with how we want to shape our world, our surroundings. Why should people, just because they are privileged, just because they have money, why should that give them stewardship or lordship over me? That is what the question in the beginning was. He made the logical fallacy here. But this guy, Mantis Wave, is ideologically aligned with him. He's probably a, what's called capitalist realism. Capitalist realism. When you can't see anything... Capitalism is the only viable economic system. Yeah. Like, he's probably falling into that trap. And assumes that there's nothing else you can do, and therefore, this guy's correct, you know? Because ownership is ownership.
Another way of putting it would be to look at the US military. Should a grade E1 private have a say in the decisions made by a first lieutenant that affect him? Of course not. Because the entire point of military ranks is that people with more knowledge and experience should be higher up the chain of command, since their decision-making skills have proven more effective at not getting people killed for stupid reasons. The point being...
That is so not the reason why people are rising in the ranks at all time. Sometimes you rise in ranks because your commanding officer just got killed. That happens. It has nothing to do with, oh, they were just so much better. Always. Sometimes it is. Often it is. Not always. Often, it's just nepotism even. It's political sometimes. And who's that boss's boss? Oh, it's the leader of the country, the president, the prime minister, whoever. Oh, and who's his boss? Huh. Well, it's the private. It's the guy cleaning the toilet. It's you and me. So, circle that around. We are the boss of the generals. We own the military. We elect the people who tell them what to do. And then they tell them other people what to do. Again, this is also a red herring. Has nothing to do with a private corporation. You're talking about a military? You're talking about... This guy's never been in the military. Oh, this guy's never been in the military. He has no idea what he's talking about. He doesn't understand how the military works. Oh my God, that's it. He doesn't understand. In times of peace, sure, you have your training exercises. And during those, you train for war. But in times of peace, you discuss how things happened, why things happened the way they happened. You allow your privates, you allow your subordinates, not subordinates. Is it subordinates? Yeah, it's subordinates. You allow your subordinates to comment on your leadership and how to improve it. There's actually a process of committing mutiny within the military that can be legitimized. Oh, has Vosh responded to him? I don't remember that actually. That's interesting. I don't remember ever seeing him. What did Vosh respond to? Lunoy? Oh, it's the Vosh is unironically evil guy. Oh, that's the guy. Did Vosh respond to this? Didn't he just ignore it? I think he ignored this one, didn't he? He just skimmed through it and went, ha ha ha, and then moved along. I think. Anyway. God, this guy's stupid.
Being made here is that many decisions are best made on positions of merit. Therefore, the claim that...
We agree. Does this guy think... And again, I paused after he made a point without listening to that. Fuck you. Does this guy think money equals merit? Because that's what he's arguing for at the moment. He argues that the people on top, the people with money, should decide who is the boss of the people at the bottom. Is that a merit-based? Of course. No. Can I not copy? No, that's the live chat. Give me.
Refuting Vosh on the quote.
Oh, right. Oh, he's done multiple videos then? Has he? Is this guy just doing... Yeah, okay. He's done multiple. Because I remember Vosh just swiping this away, you know? Okay. This guy is obsessed. I said to myself.
The person should always have a say in everything around them is completely ridiculous. And Hasan completely fails to grasp this point, instead opting to give an alternative scenario where you would have some say in what happens to you, but that's...
Does this guy think that democracy should be merit-based? That you're not allowed to vote unless you have proven yourself worthy? I bet he does. I bet this guy is a Sargon fan, actually. Ooh. Sargon. No. Do we have Lotus? No, okay. Rationalist. I don't know what this is, but anyone calling themselves that is cringe. The belief that actions and ideas should be based on reason rather than emotion. What the fuck are you saying, dude? What is... Oh, you should base your actions on rationality rather than emotion. In all circumstances. Hey, my girlfriend is crying because she had an anxiety attack that she's gonna have she has a tumor in her brain because she has a headache. Okay? There's no rationality behind that. How should I act? You should tell her it's illogical. No. I should comfort her. I should reassure her. Not everything is rationality based, my dude. Right Yeah. Exposing the nonsense of clown world. Yeah, clown world memes. Oh, he's an ANCAP. Of course. So he doesn't believe in democracy then. Yeah. ANCAP.
It's not the point of the argument at all. Providing a counterexample to a reductio ad absurdum doesn't automatically disprove the point that it makes. If Hasan had at least actually studied how critical thinking works sometime in his life, he would know this. But since he clearly hasn't, the ad absurdum doesn't automatically disprove the point that it makes. If Hasan had at least actually studied how critical thinking works sometime in his life, he would know this. But since he clearly hasn't, the argument completely flies over his head. Now, I could go on and point out the further
this guy is so full of himself. He completely missed the illogical argument from Praxben and goes, oh, if Hasan had still studied this, he would have understood that I am the smartest guy in the room.
Relevancies of his response to Praxben, if it can even be called a relevant.
By the way, what the fuck is this? I've studied some filmmaking on my spare time because I'm a creative boy. Do you know how if you don't have a lot of money and you don't have a lot of editing skills or visually creative skills, black with white text, period, it gives an air of class. Actually, it's minimalistic. It's easy to read. It doesn't give this 1990s. I'm a fan. I'm somewhat of a graphic designer myself. Just Arial font is fine. Not Wingdings, not Comic Sans. Just standard Arial font. Times New Roman if you're feeling spicy. I don't know. Just keep it minimalistic. Don't go overboard with whatever the fuck this is. So average Hasan Abi response video. 1. Takes what he's responding to out of context. It wasn't out of context. He made a point. Hasan responded to that point, refuting. I don't know if he refuted it. I don't care. I refuted it. And then everything else falls after that. That's like the first pillar didn't stand, so why would the rest? It's a dominoes effect. Refutes the incomplete and or out of context points, generally by utilizing fallacies of relevance. No. Repeat process and claim victory. Kind of like you're doing, I guess.
Response, but it's pretty much just an endless pattern of Hasan failing to properly address any argument he makes while regurgitating random socialist talking points. So let's move on to another example.
Random. It's just random socialist. It has no relevance to the point, unlike the video he responded to, which had no relevance to the original point.
Feels like every bread tuber has to take blind swings at Dr. Jordan Peterson. They legitimately cannot help themselves.
Blind?
So here we are.
I knew this guy. He'd been in a motorcycle accident.
I can't do a Kermit voice.
And it really ruined him. And
it really
he was like
ruined
a linesman, working on the power. And he was working with someone who has Parkinson's disease. They had complementary inadequacies. 2 of them could do the job of 1 person. And so they're out there fixing power lines in the freezing cold, despite the fact that one was 3/4 wrecked with a motorcycle accident and the other one
He's talking about a society that does not adequately take care of its people, of its disabled workers, while simultaneously loving how awesome it is that these people who are like up have to still work. They are so up that it is hard for them to complete the work of one person, and yet they are still...
Okay. Sorry if I take you out of context now, Mentis. Or respond to you before you've had a chance to make your overarch... Fuck you, first of all. Secondly, this is not an appeal to emotion. He's not saying... He's appealing to ideology. Is that a logical fallacy? Appeal to ideology. Logical fallacy. Texas of El Paso. The popular fallacy of doubting or rejecting a novel claim or argument out of hand simply because it appears superficially incredible, insane, or crazy, or because it goes against one's own personal beliefs, prior experiences, or ideology. Do we know someone who does this? I don't know, Mantis. Like, this is what being a rationalist does to a motherfucker. Oh, unless you're using logic when you're arguing, you are actually wrong. Straight out of hand. That's an appeal to emotion, not using logic. Fuck you.
Still out in the freezing cold. By the way, this is a classic that happened type story where it's not true. Like, it's just like, that's definitely a fake ass story. But the fake story he chose to tell is still one that is like horrifying. A normal human being with like a shred of empathy would hear this and go, this is psychotic. Those people should be pursuing other things that are not physical. They should be able to have fulfillment elsewhere. Society or a functioning, competent government should take care of those people. Capitalism is poggers because people with late-stage Parkinson's disease still have to do hard labor to survive.
This response by Hasan once again follows the pattern.
Like, there's nothing wrong with what Hasan said there. He's making an ideological point. I'm just gonna say that he's making like whenever Hasan is making an ideological argument that this guy tries to refute by saying it's emotional, whatever. I'm just gonna say he's making an ideological and understand the Mentis wave is wrong there.
And responding to an incomplete point followed by incoherent socialist snark. It's particularly bizarre this time around because if you actually watch the original video from Dr. Peterson, it's not even really about capitalism or socialism at all, but about how reality is harsh, nature is cruel, and one way to deal with the difficulties of how the universe unforgivingly operates is through self-improvement and strong ethics. It's more of a philosophical point than anything else.
So he's allowed to be illogical in his argumentations. Oh, I see. When Jordan Peterson makes a philosophical argument about how working when you have a severe disability out in the freezing cold, you can hardly stand up straight, you can't hold a tool even. Oh, well, that's just a philosophical argument. That has nothing to do with what Hasan said. But Hasan, he's just making an emotional argument. How do you square these two? Hasan made a philosophical argument. Ideology is a philosophical argument. But again, he's so blinded by his own ideology that he can't see that.
There's this idea that hell is a bottomless pit, and that's because no matter how bad it is, some
emotional
stupid son of a bitch like you could figure out a way to make it a lot worse.
That's an emotional argument.
So you think, well...
That's... fear? Is that an... No, it's just emotional. It's just an emotional argument. What the fuck?
What do you do about that? Well, you accept it.
Why?
That's what life is like. It's suffering.
Why?
That's what the religious people have always said. Life is suffering. Yes. Well, who wants to admit that? Well, just think about it. Well, so what do you do in the face of that suffering? Try to reduce it. Start with yourself. What good are you? Get yourself together for Christ's sake, so that when your father dies, you're not whining away in a corner, and you can help plan the funeral, and you can stand up solidly so that people can rely on you. That's better. Don't be a damn victim.
So the snippet.
Okay. Just to respond then to what he thinks is, I don't know, a good argument against Hasan there. I don't know. Because what Hasan is arguing is that it should be better. We should do better. But doing better doesn't mean you should be forced to work in horrible conditions after an accident. We should take care of people who have that. That's his argument. But you said that's a emotional argument. So I'm assuming now Jordan Peterson, well, he's also an emotional boy. He's also making an emotional argument here. Is he? Is he making it? Because he was talking about hell and how that scares people. What is fear if not emotions?
The clip Hasan is responding to here is completely taken out of context. It's a 7-minute video, feel free to watch it all for yourself if you want. Hasan's socialist dribble here has almost nothing to do with what Dr. Peterson is talking about. But just for fun, let's pretend for a moment that it does. Hasan's argument here is basically the classic grift that presupposes socialism would do a better job providing people a higher quality of life than market economies. Because as we all know, people having to work in harsh conditions never happened in Stalin's Russia or Mao's China. This is of course completely untrue. There are numerous studies that have proven that the freer the market, the higher the people's quality of life. So the only way Hasan's reasoning makes sense here is if he is talking about a utopian ideal of socialism, which therefore follows the same reasoning error that every utopian argument makes. That it may be true in theory, but useless in practice. For instance, you could say, "Hey kids, I've got a great idea. How about we all agree to just stop doing bad things? Yeah, man, if nobody did any bad things anymore, then the world would be a happy land paradise. I'm so smart. Why didn't anyone else ever think of such a simple solution? Everyone sing Kumbaya and stop doing bad stuff." While this kind of statement is correct in theory, it's obviously not feasible, and therefore just complete juvenile feel-goodism. Yeah, sure, if the government was perfect and didn't ever fall to corruption and perfectly took care of people who were suffering, society would be better. But in reality, government corruption increases with its power, so Hasan's argument here is nothing more than just wishful thinking and infantile nonsense. But what else does he have to say?
Okay. I let him speak his mind there because he spews so much nonsense, and I didn't want to have to pause every 5 minutes. A lots of appeal to emotion from you there, first of all. Second of all, you call yourself a rationalist, my dude. That is the most utopian ideal you can have. Thinking you can be a perfectly rational boy. It is so out of touch with how humans work that I don't know how you can ascend that ideal. What I have my critique, and Hasan, like, it's fair to say that Hasan used the critique against Hasan that, hey, in China, North Korea, Soviet Union, blah, blah, because Hasan is much less critical of it. But to think that we can't take care of people suffering or people with very debilitating disorders unless the government is never corrupt. It's called something. It is also a fallacy. It is let's see here. What is this? Ad hominem? Yeah, name calling. Sounds like you are an asshat. Yeah, that's what I said. Okay. Not a hasty storm and appeal to tradition. It might be appeal to tradition, actually, because it is absolute non sequitur, but that can be said about almost every. But it's like a golden fallacy of utopia. The Nirvana fallacy, is that it? Informal fallacy comparing actual things with comparing actual things with unrealistic, idealized alternatives. Yes. He is saying, he's creating a false dichotomy here by claiming that unless everything is perfect, we have to make people suffer. You know, pretty much. You won't find this in Sweden. Sweden is not perfect. We are currently, like I've said in this stream, we are currently plunging into fascism here. But we still take care of those people who suffer horribly debilitating conditions at this moment. I've been on disability leave for almost an entire year myself. Over what? Over ADHD, my man. Over not getting my treatment. Over having to white knuckle myself for 36 years of life. My engine was running low. My gas was out. I had revved my engine on the first gear for 36 years, driving at 60 miles per hour, 100 kilometers per hour on the first fucking gear. Now, American boys out in the audience, and especially Mantis Wave, I guess, won't understand this because you drive automatics. But it's not good to drive in first gear, okay? Do not drive in first gear for that long. But again, he's so ideologically blinded here.
In the cold.
That's how our civilization works. It's like there's all these ruined people out there. They've got problems like you can't believe. Off they go to work and do things they don't even like. And look, the lights are on.
This is yet another instance like we're watching those like get rich quick scammers describe how a fundamentally broken system works, but they say it with like a positive association. Yeah. So you are left to believe that this is a positive thing, but because it's actually true, the thing that
this isn't even this is, first of all, not an appeal to emotion. He's just describing what people do when they try to dupe you into thinking everything is fine and hustle culture is perfectly good. That's not an appeal to emotion. What the fuck are you talking about? First of all. Second of all, he's not even making an ideological argument here. He's just describing what they do and what Peterson just did.
That they're saying, if you have a shred of empathy, you hear that and you go,
like Peterson, what is it? Appeal to history? Appeal to tradition. The old way of thinking was proven correct when introduced, i.e. since the old way of thinking was prevalent, it was necessarily correct. In reality, this may be false. The tradition might be entirely based on incorrect grounds. That is what you're doing right now.
You go, that's fucking psychotic. That's not good. That's bad. You described wage slavery and how people who are like fucking forced to do hard labor to keep your shitty fucking lights on.
Again, if you had watched the full clip of what Dr. Peterson meant, it becomes obvious that Hasan's response has very little to do with it. It's like he just prepares canned pro-socialist responses and tries to fit them into whatever he is responding to. That's pretty much what we are seeing here. Dr. Peterson's point that we should be grateful for human perseverance is completely missed in favor of capitalism bad because people have to work. Reality check. People also have to work under socialism and under generally worse conditions.
Wait. He said that. Well, we're at 12 minutes, but Hasan said that. Can we get the... I'm not hearing anything. You guys are hearing something. Why am I not hearing anything? What? No, you guys aren't hearing anything else. Oh, I fucking muted myself. I saw my microphone meter go up, and that's why I thought you guys heard, but that was just me speaking. Sorry.
Society that does not adequately take care of its people, of its disabled workers, while simultaneously loving how awesome it is that these people who are like up have to still work. They are so up that it is hard for them to complete the work of one person, and yet they are still out in the freezing cold. By the way, this is a classic that happened type story where it's not true. Like, it's just like, that's definitely a fake ass story. But the fake story he chose to tell is still one that is like horrifying. A normal human being with like a shred of empathy would hear this and go, this is psychotic. Those people should be pursuing other things that are not physical. They should be able to have fulfillment elsewhere. Society or a function.
Did he say they shouldn't do something? No. He said they should do something other than physical labor. They should be allowed to pursue other things. They're not useless to society. They can still create value for society. They can still contribute to society. It is one thing if this guy was a live streamer and he forgot that, because first Hasan said they shouldn't work, but what he's clearly saying is they shouldn't do manual labor, hard manual labor. They should probably have, an office job or something like that. But you meant this way. Let's go back a bit.
To keep your
Peterson meant, it becomes obvious that Hasan and tries to fit them into whatever he is responding to. That's pretty much what we are seeing here. Dr. Peterson's point that we should be grateful for human perseverance is completely missed in favor of capitalism bad because people have to work. Reality check. People also...
Again, he never said that. Ever.
Work under socialism. And
I have my critique of Hasan. Hard critique of Hasan. But I've never actually heard him say people shouldn't work. People shouldn't... Like, he's probably said something like people shouldn't have to work, or your personal value doesn't come from work, or something like that. I don't think he said we should never work as a guiding principle, because labor, Marx talked about labor. But... No, it's ludicrous. It's dishonest. It's a nonsense. No, it's lying. That's the logical fallacy. He's just lying.
Generally worse conditions. Until we reach the technological singularity where robots can do all jobs better than humans can, there are jobs that just have to get done that people will have to do regardless of what political or economic system they are living under.
Of course, this guy is a technocrat. Technology will not reduce the labor we do, but not under capitalism. Under capitalism, what it will do is make people make more people unemployed. That is what technological advancements do. In a socialist society, in a society where workers control the means of production, technological advances will mean that we can stop working at some point. Probably. And pursue just interests, hobbies, and stuff like that on a full-time basis without having a need for a monetary value being the desired outcome, But not under capitalism, absolutely not under Ancapistan, okay?
So once again, Hasan's reasoning here is just completely missing the point, irrelevant utopian nonsense. The rest of his video on Dr. Peterson doesn't get any better, so let's just move on to the final example of Hasan's response video style, this time featuring Tim Pool.
That it was like, there's like a political message in Squid Game.
Yeah, the writer, at least that's what he said.
My takeaway from it was communism bad. That was my takeaway from it.
The creator called it a fable for modern day capitalism.
Yeah.
But also for life and the competitiveness of life. And that message, it's not subtle at the end.
Nothing is more cancerous than watching someone give light spoilers or fucking full-blown spoilers about a show that was like insanely popular that everyone and their mothers watch, but being on the internet and like having to discuss it or watch it on a Twitch stream, it's literally just like, it makes me want to fucking video game myself. Like, we get it, bro. You didn't watch it. Most likely you're not intending to watch it. I think it's really stupid that it's so like overtly, it's not even an undertone, it's like so overtly anti-capitalist.
Ah yes, the Squid Game debate over whether it makes...
I never watched it, actually. I have a very strong reaction to suffering, actually, to human emotions. And Squid Game was so effective at conveying how horrific the treatment of the people were, how little worth the people in Squid Game had, that I couldn't watch it. It actually made me physically ill. That's how good it was. But just the first episode was enough for me to understand, oh, this is about capitalism. How horrifying it is. Oh, the was it the child's game where you try to flip someone else's package of something? I don't know. And you could take a slap to the face if you don't succeed, to try again. But if you succeed, you get $100 or something like that. I don't remember exactly. But that alone was a scathing criticism of capitalism.
Makes capitalism look bad or communism look bad. I briefly mentioned this in refuting Brit. It makes
anti-capitalist.
Ah yes, the Squid Game debate over whether it makes capitalism look bad or communism look bad. I briefly mentioned this in refuting BreadTubers episode 1 featuring Vosh. I suppose now is as good of time as any to explain this in more depth. The basis of the discussion is that Squid Game is showing problems caused by too much power in the hands of the few, while people in the bottom have to fight for their lives just to scrape by. And the people with power exploit their power and take sadistic pleasure in watching the struggle of those less fortunate. In other words, Squid Game's general narrative can be interpreted as an allegory for social issues caused by monopolies and corruption. Now, the issue here is that capitalism actually does a better job at preventing monopolies and corruption than socialism does.
No, it doesn't. No. Oh my God, you're fucking... I'm a fucking moron, okay? I'm freely admitting that I'm a fucking moron who knows next to nothing about real world issues, okay? But that is so fucking idiotic to say that capitalism is a better way to dilute power across a population than socialism. Capitalism isn't preventing itself from becoming monopolistic. Liberal ideals, liberalism as it was intended from at the start, that is what's doing it. Laws, people, capitalism. Oh, the only thing the top priority of every fucking capitalist or every corporation, period, not capitalist or all corporations, the goal of them, even if they're not stated outright, is monopoly. If you can gain a monopoly like Uber, you jack up the prices and you screw everyone over. Yes, in the beginning, oh look, competition is good. But if nobody can keep up with the competition, if if they have such deep pockets that they can undermine everyone else, every other competitor, so everyone uses them, and then that corporation gobbles up the other corporations without problem, what happens to the prices? Why would they stay as low? You like logic, Mentis. Why would they stay low after they've already gobbled up all the competition? Oh, but some other corporation will come along. No, it won't. No, it won't, because no other corporation will be able to have as deep pockets. Capitalism doesn't prevent corruption. Capitalism is corruption.
Does, because there is one big monopoly that socialists
Why is
completely
it such a, like, I am
avoid.
What is what are you doing with the colors? Stop it. Horrible editing.
Talking about this subject, the state. If the state ends up owning everything, then this is about narrative can be interpreted as an allegory for social issues caused by monopolies and corruption. Now, the issue here is that capitalism actually does a better job.
Yes, you can probably, again, I haven't seen it myself the entirety. I've only seen the first episode, so I can't speak entirely. Based on the first episode, and based on the intent of the author, and based on the setting of the series, South Korea, it is absolutely specifically about capitalism. Can you read can you read other things into it? Yes, of course. You can do that about anything. The Mona Lisa. No, not the Mona Lisa. That's a bad example. Let's take Batman, the Batman, the latest Batman movie. It's about, in my interpretation, and I think I'm fairly spot on here, about vigilantism not being a solution to social problems. But you can interpret it as the state needs to crack down harder. The state needs to have more police because one guy can't do it all. You can interpret anything however the fuck you want. Doesn't make it right.
Preventing monopolies and corruption than socialism does, because there is one big monopoly that socialists completely avoid when talking about this subject, the state. If the state ends up owning everything, then this is by definition the biggest monopoly you can possibly have, as well as being the ultimate form of corporatist corruption. And the thing is, this is exactly what happens when socialism is pushed to its logical conclusions. Communal ownership of the means of production really just means that whoever has bureaucratic power controls the means of production, which is why whenever communism is seriously attempted, it always ends in state ownership of the means of production, which results in one of the most corrupt and most monopolistic societies in terms of power dynamics that can possibly exist. This is basically why Tim Pool is saying that Squid Game is actually a critique of communism, because communism's logical conclusion is state ownership, which history has proven. For anyone watching this video that is new,
which history, again, fallacy of antiquity. Oh, that's how people, that's like saying, oh, the logical conclusion of democracy is a dictatorship. Is horrific, a horrific dictatorship of with repression of rights and warring and yada yada. Like, you can make that logical conclusion based on past events. Doesn't mean that it's right. Doesn't mean that democracy inevitably leads towards that. It means that if you don't guard for it, that's where it's going to lead. That's where fascist forces are going to use democracy to get into power. We don't even have to go as far back as Rome. We can just look at Turkey. We can look at Hungary. We can look at Russia. and we can look at Europe, we can look at America. Every fucking democracy has to battle fascism internally, constantly, in order to not fall for it, in order to not allow it to get a hold of government and use democratically created institutions for their own will. But I wouldn't throw out democracy because of that. Socialism, the logical conclusion of socialism is not oppression, is not North Korea, China, USSR. Because guess what? The people don't own the government there, or didn't own in the case of USSR. It's a fascist dictatorship. How can the people own the means of production? But he would say, oh, but the logical conclusion, it doesn't matter, that's where it leads to. No, fuck that. In my worldview, it leads to less government intervention. It leads to a lowering of government regulation on people, actually. I want people to be competent and informed enough to handle regulation of their industry by themselves. But we can't do that without workplace democracy and worker-owned corporations. That is my logical conclusion. But I don't have a history to point towards. Oh no. This guy would be a redcoat during the War of Independence for America. Absolutely. Oh, democracy has led to dictatorships. We can't allow that. The king has to reign supreme, or we are going to fall for our worst instincts.
New to the socialism versus capitalism debate, this is possibly the biggest reason of all that socialism doesn't work. The very definition of socialism, defined by socialists as common ownership of the means of production and distribution, is not actually an achievable goal. Without
worker owned, not common owned. What?
The biggest reason of all that socialism doesn't work. The very definition of socialism, defined by socialists as common ownership of the means of production.
No, not common ownership. Worker ownership
and distribution is not actually an achievable goal without authoritarian control. So
let me take this in good faith then. If I was in control, I could snap my fingers. Would I create a socialist communist utopia here? No, I wouldn't. What would happen if we did that would be that nobody would dare to invest money in us, would dare to trade with us, yada, yada. We'd had massive issues on the international markets. We still rely on other nations, and I don't want to abandon other nations' ability to achieve socialism. So we have to be international in our approach towards this. So what would I do? First of all, the government institutes a foundation or a loan program where workers are given the ability to buy the corporations they work for under certain conditions. The corporation is moving out of the country. Sorry, we have to have a vote on if we should buy the corporation or not, collectively. And then run it as a worker-owned, democratically run workplace. Maybe it's going bankrupt. Or, you know what? It wants to sell. Some other corporation wants to buy it, and they are interested. Sorry, workers have to have a vote, and the government steps in with the loan under very, very lucrative circumstances, and the loan is forgiving if it's not been able to be paid back within, 20 years, something like that. Whatever. That's step one. Step two that I would implement then in a few years down the line, when we've seen the fruits of this, and people are starting to demand it more and more and asking their own corporations to sell to them to open up for that, because I don't like the state forcing it in the beginning. Well, once we get to that point, we can go to elections on transferring our current system of stock options towards this system of worker-owned, democratically run corporations as the main mode of organizing a corporation. How, let me ask you, Mentis Wave, does that lead to a dictatorship? How? I have no idea how you can go from that to, then we need to centralize everything in the government. No. No. Absolutely not. And he's going to say, but the loans means the government owns it. No, it doesn't. You can just have a provision in there that says the government doesn't have a say in how the corporation is run, just like the banks don't have a say in how the corporation is run, as long as the payments are made. We can it's politics. It's democracy. You can just say, you can just choose not to do it, you know? You can just choose not to elect far-right fascists.
Socialists have never come up with a good answer to this problem. Well, they've certainly tried, of course, but their answers all fall flat.
Everybody wears the same clothes. They have limited access to anything. They get garbage food every day. They're like, okay, the game's over. Here's the food you get. And they get trash. Yeah. And they're fighting each other because they're starving. That, to me, is an indictment of communism. And if this guy who made the show is actually like, it's actually capitalism that's bad, I'm like, it just goes to show this is a person who made a great show but was really dumb and didn't understand.
Why? Because you can argue that that's an analogy for communist nations. Sure. But why were they there? What drove the people to be in the game? What drove them to stay in the game? Not stay in the game because or partake in the game initially. The dream of money. And if I recall correctly, if they vote to stop collectively, they all share the money, I believe. So, but it's greed. He's critiquing greed. How much people are willing to debase themselves. How willing people are to crawl on the ground for scraps. That's the critique he has.
And they were actually critiquing.
Wait. So he's saying the show is actually about communism, not capitalism. And even if the creator himself says that, then even then he's wrong. I love that carve out that he did, where he just he basically was like, I know I'm fucking wrong, but it doesn't matter. The creator himself and his artistic vision is also possibly wrong. If I get owned down the line, I'll have an out. I'll simply state that I was right. Easy.
I mean, I'm going to be charitable here and say, artists can be wrong about their own art. I mean, it's death of the author is a thing for a reason. Honestly, remove what's the bitch name? J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling. Remove her from the Harry Potter series. Isn't it kind of transpositive, actually, in its messaging? There's no trans characters. But why, in general, wouldn't it be kind of easy to just say, here's a potion. Now you're a woman. that world is like made to be trans positive. Isn't there even it's not what you're born, Harry Potter. It's not how you're born. It matters not what someone is born, but what they grow to be. This is a fucking trans message that prior to J.K. Rowling opening up about her being a TERF, trans people actually quoted.
Bye-bye, I win. What a fucking drooling, pathetic little baby way of looking at.
Now, Hasan's response to this is one of the worst I've ever seen. He neglects to meaningfully respond to the subject of Tim Pool's implied point, instead opting to simply restate that the creator of Squid Game says it's a valid critique of capitalism, therefore it just is. Think about this rationally for a moment. For instance, if a flat earther makes a movie and claims that his story proves the earth is flat, but upon watching the movie it includes a bunch of geometric data that when examined actually proves the earth is round, does this movie prove the earth is flat because the creator claims so, or does it prove the earth is round because the data shows so? Obviously the latter. Just because a person intends for their artistic work of fiction to serve as an allegory to prove point X doesn't magically mean it successfully proves point X. Again, this is very basic critical thinking skills. So what Hasan is saying here is effectively just claiming that Squid Game is a critique of capitalism because the creator says so, and because the creator says so, the critique is automatically, magically valid. This is a circular argument, and for that reason, there really isn't any value in going further into Hasan's response to Tim Pool on Squid.
Okay. Begging the question, a circular argument in which conclusions... No? First of all, Hasan didn't argue anything. It is so dishonest to grab something like a streamer, especially someone who streams 8 hours a day, and he just reacts to something Tim Pool says. Oh, what a fucking idiot! Blah 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 blah. He thinks blah blah blah. Meanwhile, Tim Pool just looks at the aesthetics and goes, and therefore it's about communism. It's just about aesthetics. Just because they look like it could have been from communism doesn't mean that it's about communism. Like, imagine if Nazi Germany hadn't, invaded half of Europe. More than half, right? Maybe. But half of Europe. Imagine that. And imagine they still existed and continued. We have no idea. It's hard to imagine. It's hard to know. But it's very likely, considering how... Oh, you know what? No, actually, we don't have to go that way. All right, it's one word, of course. Maybe, just maybe, something can be said about Nazi Germany as well. These are not soldiers. These are kids. But my guess is, I'd wager that he'd claim that Nazi Germany, Nazi stands for Nationalsozialism. National Socialism. It's socialism. That's his argument. I guarantee it. It's not that it's fascism that breeds this kind of thinking. Like we're seeing in America at the moment with demands of or the TERF movement in America, where anyone deviating from traditional gender roles is immediately assumed to be trans, immediately assumed to be a danger, to be a groomer, which forces people to conform to the same type of patterns, just like in Nazi Germany, or in Stalinist Russia, or in China or North Korea, where these dictators, fascist dictators, create an environment where anyone who looks like they might have more money, looks like they might be more educated, looks like they think they're above you, even though they might not think that, is immediately made suspicious of being a counter-revolutionary, which conforms people automatically into the same type of appearance. But this guy is a fucking moron, obviously. And again, begging the question. No, it's not begging the question. Substantiate that, please. Let me just see here, begging the question.
So what Hasan is saying here is effectively just claiming that Squid Game is a critique of capitalism because the creator says so, and because the creator says so, the critique is automatically, magically valid. This is a circular argument, and for that reason, there really isn't any value in going further into Hasan's response to Tim Pool on Squid Game.
He thinks that because the author said it, and I refer to the author's intended critique, or intended, or I refer to the author's intentions. That is begging the question, this guy thinks. That is not how begging the question works. Can I get a question? Can I get an example? Wait. That food made me nauseous. No, the food was nauseous. It made you nauseated. Come on, you're just begging the question. I annoy people on the side using beg. Oh, how fucking perfect. How salient is this? Can I get an example? Murder is always morally wrong. Therefore, abortion is morally wrong. That is begging the question. You're connecting things in. I'm not good at. People announce for thousands of years that the Earth is round. Yeah, okay. Here's the begging the questions. You are saying in the premise, the question that you're begging here. I don't know. Fuck it. I can't explain this, but I know it's wrong. You're just gonna have to trust me. I know it's wrong.
Bad takes built on this faulty foundation. To conclude this section, here are some other examples of this type of pause, spew bullshit, repeat, claim victory style of content from.
I love how, again, the editing here is perfect.
Here are some other examples of this type of pause.
Why is it behind everything here? What? I'm somewhat of an editor myself.
Spew bullshit, repeat, claim victory style of content from Hasan. Feel free to watch them yourself and see if you can spot how often his responses have little to do with the central argument he is responding to. Alternatively, you can look at other leftist streamer bros like Vosh or Xanderhall, as they both produce a similar style of content with this pattern of pause, spew nonsense, repeat. Now this next section represents a far bigger problem, leftist racism. Another pattern in the type of far-left, unresearched streamer bro content Hasan Abi creates, and possibly the most dangerous problem with it, is a strong tendency to partake in race baiting and what some like to call leftist racism, especially when...
I've seen this comic, I don't remember it. Right-wing racism. I only date white men because miscegenation is sinful degeneracy. I only employ whites in my company. Fucking terrorists, stop fucking goats and exploding all day. Whites, colored people, you're fucking black. Normal. I date Mark because he's sweet and caring and we're good together. I only employ the most qualified in my company. Idealism much? Hi, Mudasir. Hi, John. Welcome. I only date men of color because it shows how progressive I am. It actually happens. It does. I hire an exact ratio of blacks, reds, yellows, vaginas, and whites. Not crackers, but whites, apparently. If a company doesn't look like a bowl of Reese's Pieces, it can't function, and also racism. Oh, you poor little Muslim. It's okay if you rape and murder one and blah, blah, blah. You're fucking white. Mm-hmm.
When the facts are against these streamers. This is a common problem with RedTube in general, so I'll first start by explaining the issue in detail. For those who do not know, leftist racism is a form of racial discrimination that tries to frame itself as improving equity, diversity, and inclusion between collective groups. You can think of it as racial discrimination against the individual, with the lame excuse given that said discrimination is somehow justified because it will supposedly improve collective equity.
Wait, I don't take that away from me. Say or do something incredibly racist, but framed in a way that it's for the sake of diversity, equity, inclusion, and or satisfying the progressive stack. There are people on the left that do this. They were very, very prevalent during Gamergate, I'm sad to say. But there is a point in guarding for like diversity in the workplace. There is a point to that. The immigrant. Okay, someone who has straight A's in school. Let's go there. Straight A's in school, but comes from the hegemonic demographic, is born into the country, speaks the language perfectly, etc., etc., etc. Compared, and maybe a highly educated parents, compared to an immigrant who had to first learn the language, then had to learn the education system because the education they came from either didn't exist or was severely lacking compared to our standards, let's say it that way, to make it more inclusive. And they only get C's. Is that a fair comparison? Should the kid with straight A's, because of that, always get better treatment? This guy would say, yes, of course, he's proven himself. I'd say that the kid who probably even had to have a second job, didn't have rich parents, didn't have the ability to hire a tutor, if we're talking about America, it's becoming more prevalent here in Sweden as well, but it wasn't a thing at all when I grew up, at least. All of these factors mean that the kid who struggled and got lower grades probably did more to earn those grades than the kid with straight A's. But you can't take it too far. But you just need to guard for that. Hollywood is a great example of this, where they have interns. The internships in Hollywood, most of the people there are from middle income or above. Why? Because they can afford to take a years-long internship. The poor inner city kid with bad grades, with good grades even, can't afford the internship, therefore can't make the connections, therefore won't get the job after their education. But this guy will never talk about that. This guy will think, oh, well, that's just meritocracy for you. No, fuck that. It is a perverted system is a perverted way of looking at what meritocracy is or should be.
Lame excuse given that said discrimination is somehow justified because it will supposedly improve collective equity. Spoilers, it usually doesn't. And evidence has actually been mounting in recent years that this type of discrimination actually increases.
Set out in black and white. United States perception of black-white relations? What does this have to do with? Oh, wrong. Stop it.
Justified because it will supposedly improve collective equity. Spoilers, it usually doesn't. And evidence has actually been mounting in recent years that this type of discrimination actually...
These are things they started talking about in 2012. They replaced class war with race war. Race war does not threaten their profits. Yeah, that's capitalism. This is something completely different. I mean, they are connected, these two things, but what? Ratings on 0 to 100 feeling thermometers. What are we doing? Feelings-based arguments now? Set out in black and white. United States perception of black-white race relations. So young people actually have positive views? Or no, that's over time. Sorry. That's over time, not age. So over time they've gone down. That's not surprising. Considering the far-right governments that America has had. But this has nothing to do with the argument you just made. This is a complete non-sequitur. Listen. He just...
in detail. For those who do not know, leftist racism is a form of racial discrimination that tries to frame itself as improving equity, diversity, and inclusion between collective groups. You can think of it as racial discrimination against the individual, with the lame excuse given that said discrimination is somehow justified because it will supposedly improve collective equity. Spoilers, it usually doesn't. And evidence has actually been mounting in recent years that this type of discrimination actually...
So he is jumping the gun, maybe? Is that what he's doing? Jumping the gun? No. He's not jumping the shark either. But it's a non sequitur. It has nothing to do with the other. He is saying that because we talk about race relations have gone, or just because we tell ourselves to be, or talk about being aware of how minorities are treated in the workplace, and we advocate for giving them more of the slice. Therefore, it leads to a left-wing type of racism where we say you have to have it. Therefore, we have this because the corporations have started talking about this. But he's not connected the dots yet. I'm still waiting for a dot to be connected here, but he won't because I can hear it in his voice. He thinks this is a slam dunk. You found a correlation, not a causation. Corporations, let me connect the dots here, which you absolutely won't. Corporations latched onto this with the D'Angelo thing, having seminars, doing like doing corporate education on racism, which of course they will, rather than do it on economic issues. Of course they will. Why would they freely talk about the economic issues? That means they're screwing over their workers? Like, of course they won't. But the corporations also like the right-wing governments. They fund right-wing politicians. And the right-wing politicians stoke the flames of racism, meaning we have less, meaning our race relations have gone down, of course. That's the correlation. This is just numbers on a screen that somehow has nothing to do with each other, actually.
Increases racial distrust and has an overall negative impact on
with
race
what you say, at
relations.
least.
It serves as no surprise then that many leftist racists are also Marxists or follow some form of socialist ideology. The guiding philosophy of collective equality behind this form of racism is fundamentally the same garbage. Now, leftist racism generally follows a concept known as the progressive stack, and just to prove I am not strawmanning this, I will use the definition written by leftists on Wikipedia. The progressive stack is a
By leftists on Wikipedia? While technically just a speaking technique, the mentality behind the progressive stack easily bleeds into everything else they do. Let me... I love it when people call Wikipedia something. What is this low-res image? Fucking hell. The progressive stack is a technique used to give marginalized groups a greater chance to speak. It is sometimes an introduction to or stepping stone to conscious decision-making in which simple majorities have less power. The technique works by allowing people to speak on the basis of race, sex, and other group memberships, with preferences given to memberships of groups that are considered the most marginalized. Yeah, okay. So this is kind of like Barton Hinkle. Like, you know, you trigger me with your hand clapping, so you have to stop that kind of stuff, you know. And I have critiques of that as well. But this guy's going to blow it out of the park, isn't he?
Technique used to give marginalized groups a greater chance to speak. It is sometimes an introduction to or stepping stone to consensus decision making in which simple majorities have less power. The technique works by allowing people to speak on the basis of race, sex, and other group membership, with
what the fuck is this voice?
preference given to members of groups that are considered the most marginalized. In other words, the value of what you have to say is not based on your individual experience or merit, but where they decide to subjectively rank you based on your group identity's victimhood points. For the most part, in the United States, they rank Western European Americans in first place and East Asian Americans in second place. Thus, most leftist racism will usually target one of these two groups, usually the former, but sometimes the latter too. An example of this in action would be wanting to end higher education programs for students that are ahead in math because too many of them are either white or Asian. Oh no. And
yeah, I have critique of that as well. I call myself a socialist. And I have critique of that as well. I'm sorry. Can I not be a socialist and have critiques of this? What is the throughput here? Are all socialists alike? Are we just a hive mind of same think?
Thus creating racial inequity. So therefore, these white and Asian kids'
Hasan?
futures must be sacrificed to the god of DEI.
I'm still waiting for Hasan here.
Unfortunately, is not a hypothetical example. Yeah, they actually did that. When leftist racism is called out, they will typically try to argue that racism is prejudice plus power, or other forms of arguing semantics and equivocation. Therefore, insults like this...
Did I say, oh my god, saltine cracker, like people are just bitter because it's saltine cracker? That's not what I said, you dumb cracker bitch.
Are magically not racist because, you know, changing the definitions magically changes the properties. But in all seriousness...
No, they are racist. They are. I don't care. It's not a harmful racism, really. It's like a funny one. I think people should be able to say racist words. I think people should be able to say racist jokes. Absolutely. It's the intent. It's the harm being done that you need to guard yourself of. If you're among friends and you say something racist, or not say something, you make a racist joke, that's fine. The friends know you. But if all your jokes are racist, if every single fucking joke you make has racist undertones, I'm gonna look weird on you. You're gonna be weird, okay? What you joke about says something about your beliefs but it doesn't mean, like, if I, like, cracker, doesn't mean you have animosity towards white people necessarily, though it absolutely can do that. I can probably point to someone who Professor Flowers would absolutely use it that way. But it doesn't have to. The joke can just be, this doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. You have all the power still. You're not going to be harmed by it. That can be the thoughts it denotes.
Seriousness, this insane concept has been refuted in extreme detail by PSA Sitch a while back. Or sometimes they will just flat out say that what they are doing is somehow a good thing due to their inability to comprehend that it's logically impossible to rationalize aggressive identity politics for one group without also justifying it for groups you don't like. It'd pull for we, but not for thee. Alternatively, they will fling baseless accusations at people they disagree.
This guy wants to be racist. Abso-fucking-lutely. It'd pull for me, but not for thee. Do you want to commit to do it, Paul? Do you want to? Is that what you is that the thing you're hoping to be able to do? I'm betting.
Disagree with of being a fascist bigot or something, kind of like this.
Lores lol. Anti-cracker mental gymnastics. You're insulting someone based on their race. Insulting someone based on their race is racist. By calling someone a cracker, you're being racist. Pro-cracker mental gymnastics. No roaches were slave owners. Honkies. This is payback for those tighty-whities. Honkies invented racism. This is like straight up like a fucking... This is like a Nazi meme, bro. What the...
There is obviously nothing...
Okay. I can agree. That's not good from Hasan. Just admit it's racist. It is racism. Then ask yourself, and? Where's the harm?
Remotely fascist about a meme explaining why racial discrimination is wrong. The only thing he doesn't like about this is the specific group it's talking about. You could easily just replace the identity groups in this meme with identity groups that the far left actually likes, and Hasan Abi would be defending the meme without changing anything else about it. But of course, psychological projection is just another feature, not a bug, of leftist racism, so these brilliant double standards
I agree here. You should be able to say cracker. Absolutely. Just like I should be able to say retard.
Not surprising at all. So let's look at some more examples of this in action. We will start with his take on Kyle Rittenhouse.
Bebo replied to me. Oh, he did? He said, well, there it is, the Rittenhouse precedent. That precedent is called self-defense, and it has been central to every single legal regime in human history. Oh, there it is, boys. The precedent is called self-defense. No way, dude, is it? That's crazy. America do be kind of broken. I mean, it is. We knew that already. We have a white supremacist criminal justice system. I don't know why people get so triggered by this sentiment, okay? Obviously, there is a float of leniency offered to, especially...
Wait. Like, you can have critique of how he handled the Rittenhouse thing. But to claim that America doesn't have a white supremacist problem in its justice system, now you're just ignoring facts, my dude. Study is the word I'm looking for. Can I read? Thank you. A 2014 University of Michigan Law School study, for instance, found that all other factors being equal, black offenders were 75% more likely to face a charge carrying a mandatory minimum sentence than a white offender who committed the same crime. They've done study after study after study. They've even done theoretical studies where they invent, like they have case studies that they've just created out of thin air. And one is white and one is black. That's the only difference. And the black man gets a longer sentence. Violence in the criminal history does not appear to contribute to the sentence imposed, except as it may factor into a score under sentencing guidelines, the study said. As a white person, you are like stop and frisk in New York. Did it target black people or did it target white people? I'm going to say targeted black people. Hispanic maybe as well. Maybe, perhaps. But it absolutely didn't target white people. The whole history, like redlining and Jim Crow, slavery, not having given people compensation, what is it called? Reparations. Not giving them reparations that they were promised. Jim Crow. World War II, giving white soldiers money to buy a home when they get home, but not giving it to black people. Redlining. All of this, all of that, have fucked over black people for long. Since they came to America as slaves, it has fucked over black people. And then you're going to say, but the system isn't racist today. Why not? Oh, but we don't have redlining. We've removed Jim Crow. We have corrected the system. How do you know? How can you tell? I can't tell that. No study that I've ever read or seen or had referenced, and you're not gonna reference any study here, are you? You're not gonna reference any expert with knowledge on the issue and say that claims the system isn't racist anymore. Are you? No. You're just gonna laugh at him, just like you claimed was bad when he did previously. Not there, Tim Pool. He laughed at Tim Pool for saying, it's a critique of socialism.
Especially a young wannabe cop, conservative kid who shot literally people that were there during a BLM protest. So, yeah. And if you consider that to be ridiculous, if you consider that sentiment to be ridiculous, then, shut the fuck up. Plus you're white, plus ratio, plus you never even fell up so that you could fell off. I'm just saying, like, the idea that, like, people's attitudes are not remarkably different when the person that, like, is on trial is literally like a white person. I'm sure this will shock.
This barely even needs to be
Like, again, humorless. But that's fascism for you. Fascists are humorless. By necessity. I don't think by default, but I think by necessity you have to be humorless. Because humor demands a level of introspection that fascists can't have. Yeah. It's just fascists can't have humor because you have to conform yourself. So you don't understand humor. You don't see humor. You don't recognize it. Oh, he said the word. Who cares? Fuck off, retard.
Refuted because of how blatantly insane it is. Ah yes, Kyle Rittenhouse being found not guilty had nothing to do with the fact that there was video evidence proving...
Whoa. What did he bring up here?
He had nothing to do with the fact...
Fucking defense said that they ran 2 mock trials, one putting Rittenhouse on the stand to testify and one without, and it did better with him on it, which is why they did it. What? Of course they did rehearse it. But this is Hasan's community for you. Yeah? What if it was you? Would you not want them to give you the best defense they could?
Fact that there was video evidence proving he acted in self-defense. Multiple...
it's shrouded in some mystery because not everything was written. It was shown. Yes, he was running from people, and they probably shouldn't have chased him like that. They probably should have not charged him like that. But we don't have the full history. We don't have the full encounter on record.
Witnesses of Rosenbaum's aggressive behavior or Grosskreut's broken and deceptive testimony. In the mind of the lefty racist, Rittenhouse
Who the fuck is this? Good Morning America? Who
House
are you?
is a fucking white male, and so clearly is
Okay, Cracker.
only getting off as a product of his whiteness. Evidence and facts be damned. The overwhelming evidence proving his innocence does not matter to them. This is very common when it comes to leftist racism. Mental gymnastics are played to avoid looking at the evidence in any case that they have decided is racially charged. This is further shown by how he later in the video repeats some of the bogus partisan media talking points. He crossed state lines, or he was 17, two things that have been proven irrelevant several times to the case. Next, let's look at his take.
Okay. But in what context? He mentioned those things. That can be depending on context. Like we should probably, we should probably throw people in jail if they do X, Y, and Z. We should probably blah blah blah. Like, okay.
Take on racial slurs.
A lot of this is going to be in the F category, I feel like.
Right here, now we're heating up. Cracker.
I mean, you know what my take is. on that.
It's an S tier. Cracker is
We
S
can't
tier.
put
Come
this
on.
as an F. It has some context. It has some history
Yeah.
of usage. Cracker. I mean, that's got to be at least a D, right?
Okay. I mean, if you say so. I guess it's like I guess it's higher. Yeah. It's definitely
got
higher
to be
than like
higher
redneck.
than fish belly.
Yeah, it's a little bit higher than that for sure.
Yeah, cracker.
It has the capacity for like people to be legitimately offended by it, even if they're in the margins. You know what I mean? Like someone could be like, "Oh, well, that's really fucking mean. That hurts my feelings." Like I can see that.
I think that should be a C.
Cum skin. Is this just white? Honky. I love honky. Peckerwood. Okay. Mayo. Cum skin. White trash. Is that a whatever? Whitey. White is probably the one I'm mostly guarded against. I don't care that much, but if people say it, "Hey, Whitey," alarm bells go off. Snow possum? Colonizer? Yeah, colonize as well. Anyone who associates colonizers with white, big red flag. White devil, that's religious language. Usually it's going to come from people, Nation of Islam, Muslim Brotherhood, not Muslim Brotherhood perhaps. But those kind of fringe elements is going to use that term. Jacobian. Super fringe people are saying that. Red flag as well.
It's really fucking mean. That hurts my feelings. Like I can see that.
I think that should be a C.
The whole argument over what is most offensive has always been an irritating one because the very concept of being offended is subjective. Anyone can subjectively claim that a word is the most painfully offensive thing ever, and anyone can subjectively claim that it's not offensive. You can't really make a concrete argument out of this either way. So instead, I'll just explain what's wrong with the slur cracker, since
since you are gonna explain it, let me explain why you're stupid for saying such a thing. To an extent, yes. Interpersonally, like man to man, woman to woman, man to woman, whatever. People to people, one-on-one. Yes. What you're saying is going to be very, very subjectively received if it's going to be perceived as racist or not. Sure. But in a broader context, during, say, a live stream or a video or what have you, it's not really subjective. It has more to do with the impact of those words. It has to do with how much... If I sit here, let's put it this way. If I sit here and I use the word cracker daily, and I call people cracker, you're a cracker, I'm a cracker, whatever cracker. Okay, Cracker Barrel. If I go do that, nobody's gonna care really. It's not gonna affect people's lives. There's not gonna be a increase in violence towards white people based on that. But if I say the N-word, why? Yes, it's because people feel animosity. It's because people with my skin have used that word to dehumanize people of a darker complexion. Is that subjective? No, that's history. That's fact. So it's understandable that people with a darker complexion take some offense to it. And as a group, will probably be scared that it was going to lead to more violence because that was what historically has happened. So it's not just subjective. It's not just. That's just one component of it. It has a historical component as well. Oh, but slaves said cracker. And? Oh no, the slave said a word to me. What are you gonna do?
It has flown over these two guys' heads. Cracker, as the term is used today, don't even get me started on the brain-dead genetic fallacy put forth by MTV, generally referred...
Wait, was it brain-dead?
...is used today, don't even get me started on the brain-dead genetic fallacy put forth...
Genetic fallacy? Like, this guy really thinks he's, like, highfalutin. He thinks he's an academic here. Dude, you make low-grade, badly graphically designed video essays. Stop talking. Stop thinking you are some 200 IQ mastermind. Okay? Genetic fallacy. Isn't that like inherited fallacy? The act of rejecting or accepting an argument on the basis of its origin rather than its content. Yeah. So previously you can go, oh, but socialists have always fallen into fascism. But that's a genetic fallacy then? You're contradicting yourself in this video, my dude.
Forth by MTV generally refers to the crack of the whip of a slave owner from the American 1800s. Thus, calling someone a cracker is basically associating them with slavery. This obviously has negative connotations as slavery gained infamy as one of mankind's greatest evils, as most people today agree it is and was a bad thing. So when a white person is called a cracker, they are basically being told that they are guilty for the evil of their ancestors. Or in other words, cracker when directed at a white person is just a roundabout way of instilling white guilt and or saying white people bad, via guilt by association. So yes, it can be considered a racially charged insult to call someone a cracker.
Okay. Okay. And... follow through here, but you're like get, and the harm of that is like you have to show the harm. Where's the harm, retard?
Next, let's look at some race baiting with the CEO of Parler.
With the CEO of Parler?
A free speech crackdown. Amazon Web Services dropping Parler from its cloud services late last night following Google and Apple banning the app from their app stores. This coordinated move from big tech and social media could effectively take Parler offline permanently and run the company out of business. Joining me right now is the CEO of Parler, John Mates, joining me on the telephone.
You don't have a
John,
right
thanks
to
very much for calling in this morning. How are you doing this morning? Can you tell us what has taken place?
Thank you, Maria. Well, it's an interesting morning, I guess, to say the least. You know, I never thought we'd be living in a country, you know, where things like this would happen, where you could get coordinated companies canceling your, what you're doing. I mean, essentially the site is.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Maria Bartiromo, and on the line with me is the president of racism, Mr. CEO of racism. We found it. He's on the line.
Said here.
So this represents a particularly dangerous guilt by association fallacy that is often pushed by race baiters. This idea that supporting a free speech absolutist platform of ideology is racist because it allows racism. This is of course a fallacious argument because allowing a person's speech does not mean you agree with their speech. This has been pointed out many times. It's also an extremely dishonest form of emphasis. A free speech platform is all-encompassing. So to say that something that is all-encompassing is bad because of the cherry-picked examples of whatever bad things they can find in it ignores the reality that you can find everything in it. The idea that free speech absolutism is racist is therefore completely absurd. The issue always comes down to the problem that there is no way to objectively define hate speech. So what is defined as hate speech at any given moment will always be subject to interpretation from the people in charge, deciding what is and what isn't allowed. Ironically, this means the official understanding of what is considered hate speech is dictated by those with power at the top, completely the opposite of what people who are in support of the progressive stack supposedly would want. I'm sure that's a power that could never, not in a million years, find itself being abused. It's not like such a power has ever been abused in history before, except for, the hundreds and hundreds of times that it has.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Lastly, here are some honorable mentions.
Okay. I let you speak there because you were spewing some moronic shit here. Earlier, you said here that why should corporations be democratically run when it should be a meritocracy? You don't have a right to demand how a corporation is run just because you use it. But now you're saying, oh, well, the corporation's censoring a Parler for... The state didn't censor it. Did the state force Parler to be removed? U.S. government forced removal of Parler. No. But Amazon doesn't have to be in business with you. Like, on the one hand, you want the government to ensure that people have a right to, force themselves upon a corporation. On the other hand, you want the government to butt out of corporations' work. Make up your fucking mind. And Voltaire, he's talking about government, not corporations, not individuals. This is so fucking schizo. Fascism... my ear. Fascism is not a cohesive ideology. It is not a... there's no underlying red line, underlying throughput. There's no that's the word I'm looking for. There's no undercurrent within fascism that guides it towards something. In socialism, the undercurrent is freedom. Or at least that's not the communist states that we've seen, like China, North Korea, USSR, stuff like that. No, they didn't have that. I'm saying in the ideology that they purported to represent, which they didn't, there's an undercurrent of people's freedom. That undercurrent guides what you should do and why you do it. The undercurrent in fascism, I don't know if it exists at all. But I said, it does exist. The undercurrent in fascism is maximizing suffering. They want to admit it, but it's true. That's why, no matter the argument here, no matter what you're responding to, you can shift the argument however you want. Oh, now you're doing this fault, even though I said earlier that's what you should do. Now you're doing this fault, even though later I'll say that's what you should. Like it's inherently contradictory. It's cognitive dissonance here at a highest level with highfalutin. And what the fuck is that? Like, again, I graphic design is your passion. What the fuck is this? Squiddly line. Keep it simple, my dude. Whatever. Okay, I'm gonna go skip to the conclusion because I can't take this anymore. This is just so dense with errors. Let's hear. Let's go back a few seconds.
In regards to Hasan, I don't agree with everything said in these, but for the most part, they are correct. And now it's time for the conclusion. Everything I just showed you are...
Did he actually...
Point. Anyways...
What is this? What is this?
Here is just repeating an easily debunked partisan MSNBC talking point. Anyways, partisan misinformation coming from leftist streamer bros is unfortunately extremely common, and many people have made decent videos.
You would never do partisan news coverage. No, use partisan sources here. No.
Videos exposing this kind of nonsense. Here are a few worthy of mention in regards to Hasan. I don't agree with everything said in these, but for the most part, they are correct. And now it's time for the conclusion. Everything I just showed you are just drops in the bucket when it comes to Hasan Abi.
Oh! Wait, did I? Yeah, I did. I told you. I knew it.
And the particular content style he uses. I actually had to cut a lot out just to make sure this wouldn't turn into some hour-long video. I watched about 40 of Hasan Abi's videos in total, and there wasn't a single instance where he wasn't guilty of some noticeable reasoning errors, race baiting, or misinformation. A far cry from my previous episode that focused on counterpoints, someone who actually is capable of making decent arguments from...
It's interesting, actually. Very interesting. But what the fuck is this graphic? But yeah, she's a video essayist. It's it's a lot easier to be poignant when you have a script you're reading from
time to time. That being said, I wouldn't consider Hasan Abi the worst RedTuber. He is at least genuinely capable of producing some level of content that I can certainly see as appealing to people, especially to those 25 years and under. He also seems to genuinely believe in a lot of the woke socialist takes that he has, in a slightly more palatable but also slightly less intellectual manner as Vosh, effectively making him what I would consider Vosh, also slightly less believe in a lot of the woke socialist takes that he has, in a slightly more palatable but also slightly less intellectual manner as Vosh, effectively making him what I would consider Vosh light. And Hasan does at least call out the corruption that goes on in Washington, D.C., even if he doesn't fully understand it very well. So there is a small silver lining there. This is why my
because Vosh doesn't?
Conclusion is that Hasan Abi is just unironically clueless, but I'm not going to go as far as to call him a terrible person, just very, very horribly misguided. And he actually does have some level of self-awareness on this.
I'm not smart, I'm a himbo. I wear it on my sleeve.
What?
You know, I wear it, I say it with my chest. I'm a himbo. I'm not a very smart person. If I were to face Ben Shabino in the marketplace of ideas, he would probably run circles around me. He's a very fast talker.
That is Hasan's way of deflecting from criticism. It is amazing that it works on this guy. Like, he could have, oh my God, falling for that is kind of low IQ. I actually think Hasan is aware of that. He's just doing it to shield himself from serious critique. But this guy's like, oh yeah, but you have to give him credit there. Everyone says that. I say it. Vosh says it. I'm sure not Ben Shapiro wouldn't say that because he is a highfalutin intellectual. The right-wing intelligentsia.
But unfortunately, in terms of reasoning skills, he is definitely the least intelligent breadtuber. 100%. No way in hell could anyone exist that is both this popular and yet worse at critical thinking than Hasan. Absolutely not. Someone like that possibly couldn't
Well, if you're a libertarian, allegedly, chances are you will be against programs such as affirmative action, state welfare, anti-discrimination legislation. Now, do we see a pattern here? In general, it seems to me that far-righters and libertarians have...
He's not wrong. That's Adam something, by the way. He's not wrong. What? Of course they are.
An awful lot in common. And that's because they both believe in this thing called personal responsibility.
Oh yeah, that guy. This'll be fun. But as far as Hasan Abi goes, that's all I have to say for now. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like, subscribe, share, and all that.
Nope. Oh, that was a long one. Holy shit. That guy's stupid. What can I say? How do I end this? You are a retard. You're a fucking moron. You're brain dead. There's nothing in this world. Your mother doesn't love you. You're a cracker. I don't know if you're a cracker, but I'm guessing you're a cracker here. Or you would have dropped the N-word. Hard R. Hard R N-word. Can I not have these kind of... Thank you. Hard R N-word would have been dropped if you were black. Guaranteed. So I'm saying you're a cracker. Redneck, possibly. It doesn't sound from the South, though. South. Fascist, for sure. Dishonest. Grifter. I don't know if you're a grifter, but you called Hasan a grifter for something not grifty. So, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, I think that covers it.